In this video, I'm going to tell everybody how to prevent or minimize tragedies like what happened to Iryna Zarutska. So share this video with everyone you know that is visiting America for vacation or work or whatever reason. It could very well save their lives. Recently, Nick Fuentes released a video about Iryna Zarutska where he stated that if she was just a little bit more racist, she would be alive today.
Our featured story is about this brutal stabbing killing on the subway. It's like an everyday occurrence now. I'm sure you've all seen the photo. You know the story. A young Ukrainian refugee, 23 years old. Her name is Iryna Zarutska. So 23 years old, young girl, young, beautiful, white, blonde-haired girl. She's a refugee from the war in Ukraine. So she leaves a war zone, comes to America, living her life. She boards the light rail car in Charlotte, sits down in front of a giant black man with long hair in a hoodie. And you know, that's your first mistake. She sits down in front of him. Within minutes, he gets up behind her. She doesn't even notice. And for no reason at all, this is a completely random attack. There is no rhyme or reason, no motivation, completely aimless violence. He rises from his seat, winds up his arm, and stabs her in the middle of her throat with a knife. And she dies almost instantly and bleeds out on the floor of a light rail car in North Carolina. He gets off the train. He's caught moments later, charged with homicide. A story often told. How many times does it have to happen? We say it every time it happens. It seems that it happens hundreds of times. How many times is enough before people start to demand change, before we get any kind of change? Wasn't Donald Trump elected in 2016 under the campaign slogan of law and order? How did that go in 2020 with BLM? He was elected again under the same pretense. And by the way, it goes without saying, this is a racial issue. It is always the same color. It's always the usual suspects. And it's not just these random acts of violence. It's everything else too. Every carjacking, almost every package theft. It is always the same profile every single time. These videos that we see on TikTok, on Twitter, of people shoplifting, of people causing chaos in stores and in other public places, on public transportation, in an airport. They are so few, such a small segment of the population, 13%. And yet they comprise the majority, it seems, of these public outbursts, of the property crime, of the violent crime, of the random sociopathic crime like this. And I said earlier in the year, very bluntly, very honestly, I said, this is how I feel. This is how a lot of people feel. We don't want to be around black people anymore. We don't want to live near them. We don't want to associate with them. When we see them coming, we go the other way. I've been saying this throughout the year. And what I have noticed is that increasingly people are agreeing with me. That chorus of woke people saying, that's racist, you can't say that, it's becoming quieter and fewer and less frequent. And the reason is because we see stuff like this. We're justified. Is there a better example than this of the axiom that around black people, you cannot relax? That's all she did. How could she have avoided this situation? Literally, do not turn your back to a black man. That's how you could have avoided it. And by the way, any boomer dad, any boomer uncle would see their young daughter, young niece sit in front of a person like that with no self-awareness, and they would grimace, they would cringe. And if she got lucky and she got up that day and walked out of that train, they would be called racist for that reaction. But today was not her lucky day. He was not one of the good ones. She paid with her life. It was not her lucky day when you survive an encounter with an erratic black man on public transit and you leave with scars or a homicide charge, a manslaughter charge, or maybe you just leave a little shaken up. Nope. Today was the unlucky day when she encountered one of those ones. Today was the unlucky day when it cost her her life and she is now dead forever. And her loved ones are without their daughter, sister, niece, I don't know her family tree. How could it have been avoided if she was racist? We were led to believe that any level of prejudice, any level of pattern recognition is the highest evil. Not just evil, but the highest evil. Oh, you're racist? I can't even be in the same room with you. Oh, you did a double take? You're looking over your shoulder because a black man is behind you? That is systemic racism, a microaggression. That is internalized racism. How dare you think that? How dare you react that way? I don't even want to know you. I don't want to be your friend. It's worse apparently now than being a murderer, barely than being a rapist, a terrorist. And yet if she were a little bit more racist, she'd be alive. If she were a little bit more racist, her parents would have their daughter. If she saw that guy and turned and walked the other way, she'd be alive. If she said, I won't turn my back to him, I'll sit behind him, I'll sit facing him, she might be still alive. But what are we to do when the lesson over and over and over again is safest bet, don't be near them. Safest bet. And who wants to gamble with their life? Your safest bet is don't be in a situation where they will also be there. Next safest bet, if you see them, get away. It doesn't matter if they notice. It doesn't matter if it's offensive or insulting. If that's your safest bet, who can argue that we shouldn't behave this way? Who would argue that you should risk your life and get stabbed in the neck for no reason like her or like Austin Metcalf because you don't want to be insensitive, because you'd hate to be racist? How's that going to make the super predator feel? Or, unfortunately, how would that make an ordinary black person feel? I care about my life more. And I'm a single man. I can't imagine what it's like for a family. God forbid you're a man with your girlfriend. God forbid you're a man with your wife, with your young children. At that point, you have an obligation to get away. You're going to gamble the life of you, your spouse, and your children because you don't want to be insensitive. You don't want to hurt their feelings. You don't want to be considered a prejudiced person, whatever that even means. Is it worth your life? Me, easy, no. You know, I like being alive. I don't like knives lodged in my throat. So I don't go near black people. And I understand perfectly well. There are a lot of black people that are not violent, and I understand perfectly well there are a lot of black people that are really good people. I'm not going to roll the dice.
While I don't agree with Nick Fuentes on everything, on this subject, he was absolutely right. In my previous video about this tragedy, I stated that because Zarutska was from the Ukraine, she was either ignorant or, more than likely, brainwashed by the progressive media about black people. Well, once again, I'm going to play an excerpt of a lecture Myron Fagan held back in 1967 that explains exactly the cause of what we are seeing today. So, why am I bringing this up? Where is the evidence that Iryna Zarutska was brainwashed by the progressive media? Here is my proof. This is a picture of Zarutska in what appears to be her room, and, well. Take a look at the upper right-hand corner. There you go. Zarutska was obviously propagandized about black people. She had some sort of board that was full of Black Lives Matter propaganda. You can see the Black Lives Matter at the top, then at the bottom right-hand corner, you have that stupid BLM chant of "I can't breathe." Now, I'm not positive if Zarutska believed all that bullshit, but I will tell you this. The progressive media has tricked the world into thinking there are more progressives than there really are. They tricked America into thinking that this country is half conservative and half progressive. They did this with a combination of constant propaganda and censorship. They absolutely bombarded all forms of media with pro-black lies and simultaneously censored everybody who spoke out and told the truth against it. I remember it was about the year 1990 when I realized this was going on. This is what you call witchcraft. So I believe that Iryna Zarutska, being a refugee from war-torn Ukraine, went along with what she thought was the popular opinion. She tried to go with what she thought was the flow. She thought that black people were normal, law-abiding citizens who faced racism for no apparent reason. Now, unfortunately, Iryna Zarutska is not a new or isolated incident. Black people have been attacking and killing white and Asian tourists that come to America for decades. They just never cover it in the national news. In fact, the Zarutska incident was only made national news because the independent news influencers on social media caused the story to go viral. So if you have any family or friends, or if you know of anyone who was recently moved to America from another country, you have a duty to tell them the truth. Tell them to stay away from majority black areas in any city that they go to or stay in. In fact, tell them to stay away from any majority black city, period. Give them a list of the blackest cities in America. Memphis, otherwise known as Memphis, Tennessee. Atlanta, Georgia. Detroit and Flint, Michigan. Baltimore, Maryland. Newark, New Jersey. Wilmington, Delaware. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Jackson, Mississippi. New Orleans and Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Birmingham, Alabama. In fact, just stay out of the states of Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana altogether. Oakland, California. St. Louis, Missouri. In fact, just tell them to do a Google search of which American cities have the highest black density and population. Tell them if they find themselves having to drive through a black city or an area that is majority black, fill up their gas tanks ahead of time. If they need to stop for gas and they see a bunch of black people walking around, keep driving until you get to a gas station where there are little to no black people if possible. Tell them if they find themselves all of a sudden in an area where you see mostly black people, keep driving and get out of there. Let them know that in those cities or parts of town where there are majority black people, your chances of being robbed, carjacked, raped, assaulted, or murdered go up exponentially. This is not hate. This is truth, and truth is love. If you care about someone and you love them, you tell them the truth. So please like and leave a comment on what you think of my views, and be sure to subscribe for more racist Asian commentary, and I'll see you in the next video.